Hello, friends. About 99% of friends who watch my videos are not subscribed, and I would be very happy if you did. Also, don't forget to press the like button and leave your comments. Your interaction makes the content reach everyone and helps the channel grow. Also, let me know in the comments from which country you are watching the video. I've been driving trucks for over 30 years, seen every stretch of highway this country's got to offer, and let me tell you, it ain't the potholes or the sleep deprivation that'll kill you. It's the stuff you can't explain. Things that creep in when you're 100 miles from the nearest town. Nothing but the hum of the engine and static on the radio to keep you company. I don't scare easy. Not after hauling freight through tornado warnings, dodging deer in the pitch, black, and once even driving straight through a wildfire. But what happened that night on Route 77? Yeah, that one changed everything. I was hauling a refrigerated load, heading south out of Kansas around 11 p.m. Nothing but darkness stretched ahead. I remember it was a Tuesday. My dispatcher, Charlie, had routed me down a stretch I didn't usually take. Said it was quicker, fewer way stations, and I was already running late. I should have known better when the GPS glitched out just as I merged onto that highway. It started repeating the same turn-by-turn directions over and over again, even though I was already driving straight. In 500 feet, turn left. In 500 feet, turn left. Only problem was, there weren't no turn to take. Just two solid lanes of cracked asphalt and a canopy of trees above, thick enough to block out even the moonlight. That's when I noticed the temperature in the cab dropped. Fast. From 75 to 50 in seconds. I reached for the heater, dial, but before I could twist it, the CB radio crackled to life. Now, I hadn't used the CB in years, not since most truckers moved to cell phones and apps. It had been dead quiet since Memphis, but right then, it hissed and popped like someone was trying to tune into a frequency. And then I heard it, a voice, dry, whispery, like wind through a cornfield. It said, "Keep driving, don't stop, no matter what you see." That's it. Just that. I stared at the radio, wondering if someone was playing games, but the voice didn't come back. I chalked it up to interference, maybe some stray signal bouncing off the hills, but then I saw headlights up ahead. Tail lights, actually. A red, Peterbilt, older model, hauling a flatbed. Nothing unusual at first, but as I got closer I realized something was off. The rig was swerving, not enough to be reckless, but like the driver was trying to shake something loose. I figured maybe he was tired, so I flashed my brights once to get his attention. That's when his trailer lights blinked out, and so did the truck itself. 1 second it was there, the next, gone. No turn off, no brakes, just gone. Like it vanished. Into the fog that hadn't been there a moment before. My hands went clammy on the wheel. I slowed to a crawl, heart thudding in my chest. The road ahead was dead silent, the air suddenly heavy and still, like something was watching me from the tree line. I told myself to keep going. Just keep rolling forward and don't ask questions. That was mistake number one. Because once you acknowledge it, once you see what's really out there, you can't ever unsee it. So I kept driving, knuckles white, around the steering wheel, trying not to glance at the trees because something told me if I locked eyes with whatever was in there, I wouldn't make it to morning. The fog thickened fast, unnaturally fast. 1 minute I could still make out the road ahead. Next minute it was like I was driving through milk. High beams didn't help. If anything, they made it worse. All I could see was my own reflection in the windshield and the eerie swirl of fog crawling over the hood. I turned off the music and cracked the window just a hair, hoping the cool air would help me focus. That's when I heard it. Footsteps. Not the light kind like a rabbit or raccoon darting into the woods. These were heavy, deliberate, one after another, crunching on gravel along the shoulder. Then came a thud, right on the passenger door. I damn near jumped out of my skin. I looked over, expecting maybe someone had broken down or was trying to wave me down, but there was no one there. Just fog pressing against the window like a living thing. I tapped the brakes, just enough to slow without stopping, and flicked on the right mirror heater to clear the glass. And in that split second before the fog rolled back in, I saw a handprint on the outside of the mirror. But it was wrong. Too long, too thin, fingers that stretched almost to the elbow like some nightmare creature tried to steady itself as it ran beside me. I slammed the gas out of pure instinct. The truck groaned and lurched forward, tires whining against the wet pavement. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my teeth. I kept my eyes on the yellow lines, willing them not to vanish on me. I didn't care where I ended up, as long as it was somewhere far from that fog, far from that hand. After maybe 10 minutes of white-knuckle driving, the fog started to thin. Just a little. Enough for me to see the road again. That's when I saw a figure up ahead, standing smack dab in the middle of the highway. I laid on the horn, not slowing down, assuming they'd move. But they didn't. They just stood there, head tilted, wearing what looked like a dirty jumpsuit or coveralls. I couldn't make out a face, no features, just a pale smudge where a face should have been. I swerved hard to avoid them, tires screeching. The trailer fishtailed, and I thought for sure I was going to jackknife. But somehow, the rig held steady. I looked in the mirror. Nothing. No one on the road. No fog. Just empty highway like none of it had ever happened. I didn't stop that night. Didn't sleep either. Drove until the sun came up and I reached a rest stop just outside Amarillo. When I climbed down from the cab, my knees nearly gave out. And that's when I noticed something that chilled me deeper than anything else. There were smudges on the passenger side door. Long, greasy handprints, dragged from the mirror all the way down to the fuel tank. Like something had been hanging on, riding with me for miles. I cleaned them off, didn't say a word to anyone, not even Charlie. What could I say? Who'd believe it? I told myself it was stress, lack of sleep, maybe bad gas station coffee. But then it happened again. Not the same way, not the same place, but the same feeling. Like something was out there on those highways, following truckers, feeding off the long stretches of lonely road. I started hearing whispers in the sleeper berth when I was parked. Little scratching sounds from inside the cabinets. One time I woke up and found my logbook open. Pages torn like claws had flipped through it in the night. I even tried getting the truck checked out. Maybe some animal got in. Maybe the wiring was faulty. But the mechanic couldn't find a damn thing wrong. Said the rig was in perfect condition. That just made it worse. Because whatever was happening, it wasn't the truck. It was the road. And me? I was already marked. One night, maybe a month later, I was driving through Arizona, coming off Route 66, when I saw a sign I'd never noticed before. Welcome to Cold Hollow. Bright white letters on old wood, lit up by two crooked lanterns that looked straight out of the 1800s. There was no town listed on my map. GPS still worked fine, this time. But curiosity got the better of me. I figured maybe it was a shortcut. Maybe a small town with a diner or a fuel station. So I turned off the highway. Biggest mistake of my life. The second my tires hit that side road, the signal dropped. Phone dead. Radio static. And I swear the engine sounded different, like it was straining against something. The trees were tighter here, twisted like they'd grown sideways just to block out the sky. The pavement turned to gravel, then to dirt. I should have turned around, but there was nowhere to flip the trailer safely. So I kept going. That's when I noticed the signs. Not road signs, handwritten ones. Little wooden stakes jammed into the ground every couple hundred feet. Each one said the same thing. Don't stop. Over and over. Don't stop. Don't stop. I laughed nervously at first, like maybe it was a prank. But my stomach dropped when I saw the next sign. It didn't say don't stop. It said too late. The road narrowed and suddenly there it was. Cold Hollow. Or what was left of it. No lights, no people. Just a row of decrepit buildings sagging in on themselves like they'd been abandoned for 100 years. The whole place smelled like mildew and rot. I pulled the truck to a slow crawl, heart hammering in my chest. And then I saw movement. Just inside what looked like an old church at the center of town. A figure stepped out, tall, cloaked in shadow and holding something in its hand. I don't know what it was, but I'll never forget the sound it made. A low, guttural moan that vibrated through my bones. I hit reverse without thinking, slammed the throttle and tore out of that place like the devil himself was chasing me. When I finally made it back to the main road, I looked in the mirror one last time. That same figure was standing at the edge of the trees, watching me, not moving. An inch, just staring. I didn't see a face, but I knew it knew me, and I knew I'd made the mistake of noticing it. From that night on, it didn't matter what route I drove or what state I was in. Something was always off. Little things at first, like the radio turning on by itself and playing old static-filled sermons in a voice I didn't recognize. Once, I was in Tennessee, running a load through the Smokies, and the whole cab filled with the scent of burning wood, like a bonfire. I checked the engine, checked the sleeper. Nothing. But when I climbed out to look underneath, I found ashes. Real ashes, spread in a perfect circle beneath the truck like I'd parked in the center of a fire ritual. That's when I stopped sleeping at rest stops. I started keeping my logbook way looser than I should have, breaking up my hours just so I'd always be moving through the night. And I always kept the cab lights on now. I didn't care if it drained the battery or ruined the bulbs. Darkness was a whole different animal on these roads. It wasn't just absence of light. It had weight. It listened. I remember I was coming out of Colorado late one night, winding down this stretch of empty two-lane road that cut through a canyon. Not a single car passed me for hours, but somewhere around mile marker 93, I saw headlights behind me. Close. Too close. At first I figured it was some impatient car trying to get around me, but when I checked my mirrors, I couldn't see a vehicle. Just the glow. Two perfectly round lights hovering just above the pavement. I slowed down a bit, signaled to let it pass, but nothing happened. It stayed back there, always just out of range. And the weird thing was, it never swayed, never dipped. Never changed distance even when the road twisted. That's when I noticed my speedometer. It was creeping up on its own. I wasn't pressing the pedal, but the needle climbed past 70, 75, 80. The engine roared like it was in a race. I stomped the brakes, but nothing happened. My foot hit the pedal and sank to the floor. But the rig kept accelerating. The headlights behind me flared brighter, flooding the cab with a harsh white glow that burned into my rearview mirrors like a welding torch. I covered my eyes, trying to shield them, and then, just like that, it was gone. No headlights, no glow. And my truck coasted to a stop like it had just come out of a trance. I sat there for a minute, breathing heavy, trying to make sense of it. Then the radio crackled again. That same dry whisper from the first night said, "It's not behind you anymore." My skin went cold. I spun around in the cab, but there was nothing there. Just my bunk and the little curtain swaying slightly like someone had just brushed past it. I started the engine and didn't stop driving until I hit the New Mexico border. I didn't report it, didn't tell dispatch. I'd learned by now that talking about it just made it worse. It was like the more you acknowledged it, the more real it became. But I did start keeping notes, dates, locations, weather conditions. I had to know if there was a pattern. And slowly, I started to see one. Whatever this thing was, it followed highways with a history. Places where accidents had happened, fatal ones. I started cross-referencing DOT reports and news clippings. More often than not, when I had one of those nights, one of those experiences, I'd find out later that someone had died on that same stretch of road, usually within the same week. It was like the road soaked up the trauma, and something woke up in the blood and wreckage. And once you drove through, it took notice of you. That's when I realized I wasn't just driving freight anymore. I was driving through memories, ghosts, echoes of people who never made it home. Some wanted help. Others wanted to drag you down with them. One of the worst runs I ever did was down I-95, heading through Georgia. It was summer, hot and humid. Bugs smacking the windshield every mile. I was hauling auto parts, nothing unusual, but just past Savannah, I got this feeling in my gut like I was being watched. I checked the mirrors. Nothing. Checked the road ahead. Still nothing. But I couldn't shake the feeling. Then I saw it. A girl standing on the side of the highway, barefoot, wearing a torn prom dress and holding what looked like a single red rose. She didn't flag me down, didn't move, just stared as I passed, eyes wide and empty. I kept going, told myself she was part of some high school prank or weird art project. But 10 miles later, she was there again. Same girl, same dress, same rose. Same stare. I don't know how, but I passed her 3 more times. Each time she was a little closer to the road. On the last pass, she was in the center of my lane. I swerved to avoid her, hit the shoulder hard, barely missed the guardrail. When I stopped to catch my breath, I looked out the window, and she was standing by the passenger door, face inches from the glass, mouth moving like she was whispering something I couldn't hear. I floored it, didn't look back. I never told anyone, but I checked the news the next day. Sure enough, 3 years to the day, there'd been a prom night crash. Girl died on that stretch of road. Nobody ever found her body, just a shoe and a crushed bouquet of roses. I ain't a religious man, never really was. But I carry a little cross in the cab now, one of those glow-in-the-dark ones. Not because I think it'll save me, but because when the road gets quiet and the fog rolls in, it's the only light I got to keep whatever's out there at bay. A few months after the prom girl incident, I got a late-night route from Boise to Sacramento. Normally, I wouldn't think twice about a job like that, straight shot, good roads, but something about this one felt off from the jump. It started with the dispatcher's voice. He sounded tired, like really tired, like he hadn't slept in days, slow and slurred like he was talking in his sleep. I asked if he was okay, and he chuckled, real low, and said, "You're going down the hollow stretch tonight. Just keep your eyes forward." That phrase stuck in my brain like a nail. The hollow stretch, I'd never heard of it. Figured maybe it was a nickname truckers gave a section of the interstate, like Dead Man's Curve or Widow's Bend, you know? So I shrugged it off, fired up the rig, and rolled out into the darkness. The first couple 100 miles were fine, clear. Skies, cool breeze, light traffic. But somewhere near the border, things started to change. The moon vanished behind a curtain of clouds, and the trees got dense on both sides of the highway. Not normal forest either. These trees looked ancient, twisted, like they grew from bones instead of roots. I passed a green road sign that just said, "Entering hollow stretch" in faded white letters. No town listed, no mileage. That was the only marker. Then my GPS glitched out, showed me driving in circles even though the road was straight. My phone, dead, like the battery got drained. In seconds, I tapped the dash, flicked the interior lights, but even those started to flicker like the truck itself was resisting the trip. That's when I noticed the sound. At first it was faint, like humming. Not mechanical, more like chanting. Real low, just below hearing level. I figured maybe I was tired, hearing things, so I pulled over at a little gravel shoulder to splash some cold water on my face. I grabbed my thermos and hopped down from the cab. And that's when I saw them. Dozens of footprints in the dirt, all around my truck. Bare feet. No shoes, no tire tracks, no animal prints. Just human feet, some big, some small, going in every direction. I didn't hear anyone. No voices, no twigs snapping, no wind. Just silence and the sound of my heart, pounding in my ears. Then I looked under the trailer. A face, just for a second. Pale, wide-eyed, mouth stretched in a scream that made no sound. I jumped back so fast I hit the door and dropped my thermos. Coffee spilled across the dirt like blood. I scrambled back. Into the cab, locked the doors, turned the key, and the truck wouldn't start. Dead. Completely dead. All I could hear now was that chanting getting louder, like it was coming from inside the sleeper berth. I turned slowly, afraid to even breathe, and saw the curtain start to twitch. Just slightly, like someone was back there. I grabbed the tire, iron from the floorboard, ready to swing, and yanked the curtain open. Nothing. Just empty sheets and a faint smell of rotting leaves. I turned back to the wheel, and that's when the radio came alive. No station, no static. Just one voice. "Keep your eyes forward." Same words the dispatcher said. Then the engine roared. To life on its own. I didn't touch the key. Lights came back, gauges lit up, and the rig idled like nothing had happened. I floored it and didn't let up for 2 straight hours. When I finally emerged from the trees, the sky cleared. The moon was out again, and the road signs started making sense. No chanting, no glitches. But I checked the clock and damn near wrecked. What should have been a 2-hour stretch had taken me nearly 7. I lost time. And when I stopped at a way station to get my bearings, the clerk looked at me real funny, said I was the second driver that week who came out of the hollow stretch looking like hell. When I asked him who the other guy was, he just said, "Doesn't matter." He didn't last long after that. I pressed him, asked what he meant. He leaned in real close and said, "Whatever rides with you on that stretch doesn't always get off when you do." I felt sick. Got back in the truck and checked my sleeper berth one more time. This time there was something under the pillow. A single, muddy footprint. Bare and small, like a child's. I didn't sleep that night, just drove. And every now and then, I swear I could hear breathing behind me. Shallow, steady, not mine. I started keeping the cab light on 24/7 after that, and I haven't taken a dispatch through that region since. But I know it's not over, because some nights, when the road is empty and the darkness feels too thick, I still hear that voice, crackling through the radio. "Keep your eyes forward." And I do. Because I know if I ever look back, I might see who's riding with me. I wish I could tell y'all that was the last strange run I ever had, but you know better. If you've been driving long enough, you learn real quick the highways ain't just pavement and painted lines. They're alive. They remember things, they keep secrets, and sometimes they bleed. A few weeks after the hollow stretch, I picked up a night load in Oklahoma, heading out west toward Amarillo. Load was simple, frozen goods, nothing weird. But dispatch warned me, stay on Route 287. Don't take Old Creek Road. GPS might reroute you. Don't listen to it. That should have been enough to keep me on the straight and narrow. Should have. But somewhere near midnight, my GPS started chirping about a faster route. Shaved off 45 minutes. I remembered the warning, but I was dead tired, and that ETA dropping looked like a gift from heaven. So like a damn fool, I took it. Old Creek Road was pitch black. Narrow, no street lights, not even reflector markers. My headlights barely cut through the mist curling over the pavement. It felt like I was driving through a swamp made of fog. About 10 minutes in, I noticed the road wasn't paved anymore. It was dirt, rutted, uneven. Trees pressed in close. On either side, their branches hanging low like arms trying to reach me. Then my headlights caught something ahead. A figure, just standing in the middle of the road. Looked like a man, but real tall and thin, skin pale and stretched, wearing what looked like an old tattered sheriff's uniform from 100 years ago. He didn't move, just stood there, eyes gleaming like marbles in the beams. I hit the brakes hard. The truck groaned to a stop maybe 30 feet from him. I flashed my brights, honked, nothing. Then he slowly raised one arm and pointed into the woods. Not in a warning kind of way. More like he was showing me where to go. The GPS freaked out, rerouting every second like it couldn't decide which path was real. I didn't move. I just sat there, hands glued to the wheel, engine, idling loud in the silence, and then he vanished. 1 second he was there, the next, gone. No sound, no movement, no sign of where he went. I should have turned back. Any sane man would have. But instead, I kept going, slowly, tires crunching the gravel. About a mile later, I passed an old rusted sign nailed to a tree. It said, Creek. County Sanatorium, closed since 1952. That's when it clicked. I'd heard stories about a place out here, a mental institution that got shut down after a fire killed half the patients. No one ever rebuilt it. Folks said it was haunted, said people who trespassed on the land would vanish or worse, come back wrong. I wanted to turn around, but the road was too narrow to swing the rig. I kept crawling forward, praying for an exit or a turnaround spot. That's when the temperature dropped, like freezer-level cold. My breath fogged the windshield. The windows iced over from the inside, and in that frost I saw fingerprints. Dozens. Smudged handprints trailing across the glass. Like someone, or something, was outside, brushing along the cab. I slammed the locks down, heart racing, knuckles white. Then, from the passenger seat, came a whisper. Clear as day. You brought me back. I damn near jumped through the roof. There was no one there, just the empty seat, but the air was heavy, thick like the cab was underwater. My ears rang. My vision blurred. And in that split second, I looked down at the floorboard and saw a pool of water forming. Black, rippling like oil. Out from it stretched a hand, skeletal, soaking wet, clawing at the edge like it was dragging itself up from some invisible lake. I threw the truck in reverse, didn't care if I wrecked the trailer. I backed up blind down that cursed road until I found the main highway again. When my tires hit pavement, everything snapped back. The cold vanished. The GPS corrected itself. The water was gone. But that whisper, it stayed. I hear it sometimes still, late at night, when I'm crossing long stretches of road with nothing but cornfields and shadows to keep me company. You brought me back. I don't know what I let in that night. Don't know if it followed me, or if it was always there, waiting for someone dumb enough to take the shortcut. But I learned something on Old Creek Road. Some roads were closed for a reason. Some routes were never meant to be driven again. And sometimes, when a voice in the dark tells you not to look, you listen. Because what's looking back might not want to leave. I wish I could say I stopped after that. That I wised up and stuck to the main routes, followed every warning to the letter. But the road's a strange kind of addiction. There's something about the hum of the tires on asphalt, the long stretches of nothing, the way the stars hang just out of reach. That kind of quiet makes you feel like you're the only soul left in the world. And maybe that's why the things out there find us. Maybe they're drawn to the loneliness. I was hauling a load of dry goods through the Nevada desert, headed west. It was one of those routes where you don't see another soul for hours. Nothing but open sand, the distant shimmer of heat on the road, and the occasional bleached skeleton of some old gas station or motel long abandoned. I'd just passed through a town called Kinsley Hollow, or at least that's what the sign said. But when I looked it up later, there was no record of it. No maps, no postal code, nothing. The place didn't exist. At the time, though, I wasn't too concerned. My fuel gauge was dipping low, and when I saw an old gas station up ahead with one flickering light still working, I figured it was a lucky break. I pulled in slow, tires crunching over gravel and broken glass. The station looked like it hadn't seen a customer in decades. The paint was peeling, windows boarded up, and the sign above the canopy just said, "Gas," in faded red letters. I climbed out, keeping one hand near the crowbar behind my seat just in case. Desert towns can be sketchy, especially at night. But as I approached the pump, the numbers flickered on. Price was strange, 0.66 a gallon. Thought maybe the machine was busted, but it took my card without a problem. While the tank filled, I took a walk around the building. That's when I noticed the cars. 4 of them, parked around the side in a line, each one covered in dust, all of them old. Like 60s and 70s models, every door open, no people, no keys. It looked like folks had just up and left mid-fill. I stepped closer to the first one, a rusty green Dodge, and saw something that made my stomach drop. There was a handprint on the window, blood, and not smeared either, perfectly pressed, like whoever left it had calmly placed their hand there before vanishing. I backed away quick, went straight for my truck. But when I turned the key, nothing. Dead. Not even a click. I tried again, still nothing. Then I looked up through the windshield and saw the lights in the station flicker on. The inside, which I'd sworn was boarded up, now glowed with a pale yellow light. Movement inside. Just a shadow, pacing slowly behind the counter like someone waiting. I didn't want to go in. Everything in me said stay put. But my radio came alive all of a sudden. Static, then a voice. Not one I recognized. "Driver," it rasped. "Pump 4's waiting." I nearly lost it. There was no one around. No cars, no working power lines. Who the hell was talking to? Eh? Then came the sound I'll never forget. A slow, wet, dragging sound, like someone pulling a heavy sack of meat across tile. And it was getting louder, closer. I looked at the station again, and now the door was wide open. That same shadow stood in the doorway, tall, hunched, impossible to see clearly. But the eyes, 2 red pinpricks glowing from the dark. I wasn't waiting around. I grabbed my emergency starter from the back, hooked it up under the hood, and prayed. On the 3rd try, the engine roared to life. I threw it into drive and tore out of there, gravel spitting in all directions. In my mirrors, I saw the figure step out under the canopy. It didn't chase me. It just stood there, watching, its head slowly tilting as I vanished down the highway. I didn't stop again until I hit the California border. When I checked my fuel log later, I noticed something strange. My tank was full, more than full. Almost like the needle was jammed past the F. But here's the kicker. My card never got charged. Not a single cent. Whatever that place was. It didn't want money. It wanted something else. And to this day, I wonder what might have happened if I'd stepped inside that building. Who I might have met, or what I would have become. I've passed that stretch of road a few times since. Never seen that station again. Not even the ruins. Just flat sand and endless sky, like it never existed. But sometimes, when I'm low on gas and the radio goes quiet, I swear I hear that voice whisper through the static. "Pump 4's waiting," and I just keep driving. Eyes forward. Always forward. ChatGPT said, "Another time I was deep in Louisiana, rolling through the bayou in the dead of night. I had a load of timber heading toward Baton Rouge, and the route took me off the interstate and down a series of winding, swamp-lined roads that weren't much wider than a driveway. Fog hung low over the water, thick and soupy, and the trees pressed in close like they were trying to block out the moon. I had my windows down halfway, just to keep from nodding off. The smell of the swamp, muddy water, decaying leaves, and that faint sulfur stink kept me alert. I had the radio off, didn't need no music. I just let the tires hum and the frogs chirp. Then I saw a shape up ahead, small, in the road. I eased off the gas and squinted. It was a girl, a little girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old, standing. Dead center in my lane, barefoot in a white nightgown, hair long and tangled. I slammed the brakes. Rig groaned to a stop just a few feet short of her. She didn't move, just stared at me, eyes dark, hands at her sides. I leaned out the window, heart racing. "Hey, you all right, sweetie? You lost?" She tilted her head, slow. Then she lifted one hand and pointed behind me. I glanced back, confused. Nothing but road and fog. When I looked forward again, she was gone, vanished. No splash, no sound, no movement. I threw the truck in park and got out with my flashlight, heart jackhammering. Shined it around. Nothing. Just reeds, trees, and the endless buzz of crickets. No footprints. No girl. I told myself it was stress, lack of sleep. Got back in the cab and kept driving. But maybe a mile later, I heard something behind me. In the sleeper, like fabric rustling. A soft shuffle followed by the faintest breath. I froze, reached under the seat for my flashlight and turned around real slow. My curtain was shut, but it moved. Just slightly, like someone was on the other side, brushing against it. "Who's back there?" I called out, voice trembling. No answer, just another breath, then a whisper. "I'm cold." My blood ran ice. I yanked the curtain open. Empty. Nothing but pillows and my gear, but my blanket. It was wet, dripping, like it had been dunked in swamp water, and in the center of the bed was a single, tiny handprint. I drove the rest of the way without stopping. Didn't sleep, didn't blink, just white-knuckled it all the way to Baton Rouge, breathing heavy and praying that girl stayed in the swamp where she belonged. That delivery was the last time I took that back route. Any time a GPS even hints at turning me near that stretch of road, I ignore it. Don't care if it adds 3 hours to the run. Because whatever that little girl was, ghost, spirit, or something worse, she wasn't looking for help. She was looking for a ride. And I ain't letting her climb back into my truck. Not again. Now let me tell you all about the run that nearly made me quit trucking for good. I ain't joking. This one shook me so bad I almost left the keys on the dash and walked away from it all. It was late September and I had a long haul through Utah, cutting across Route 50, what they call the loneliest road in America. I've driven it before, and yeah, it's quiet out there. Miles and miles of nothing but desert, dry hills, and sky. But that night it felt different. I was hauling industrial cable from Ely to Delta. Simple enough. Clear weather, cool breeze. Sun had just dipped behind the hills when I hit the long stretch. Twilight turned everything purple, shadows stretching across the highway like claws. I had about 5 hours of driving ahead, and not a single town in between. That's when I noticed the headlights, behind me. Far back at first, just 2 tiny white dots in the mirror. At first I didn't think much of it. Figured another. Driver caught up with me. But the lights didn't behave right. They didn't bounce or sway like a normal vehicle on rough pavement. They just glided, perfectly steady, and they didn't get closer. No matter how fast or slow I went, those lights stayed the exact same distance behind me. I radioed out, just to see if maybe someone was following the same route. Any drivers out on Route 50? Got company behind me, just making sure I ain't imagining things. Silence. Not even static. Just dead air. I kept watching those lights. 20 minutes went by. Still there. Never gaining, never fading. Always the same distance. That's when I noticed there weren't any stars above me. I looked up, and the sky was pitch black. Too black. No moon, no clouds, no nothing. Like the night had swallowed the sky whole. I started to get real uneasy. Reached over and flipped on the radio again, even tried my phone. No signal, of course. Out there, that wasn't unusual, but still, something didn't feel right. Then the lights disappeared. Gone. Just blinked out all at once. I felt my stomach drop. I slowed down, peering in the mirrors, looking over my shoulder. Nothing but darkness. Not even my taillights reflected off anything behind me. I was alone. Or so I thought. I turned my eyes back to the road and nearly screamed. There was someone standing right in the middle of the highway, tall, thin, dressed in all black, no face. I mean that literally. No features, just smooth, pale skin where the eyes and mouth should have been. I swerved hard, tires screeching, barely missing him. Trailer rocked, almost jackknifed, but I kept her straight. When I looked back, he was gone. Again, like he'd never been there. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst, but it wasn't over. Oh no, because a few miles later, I looked in the side mirror, and there he was, clinging to the side of my trailer, just crouched there, hands and feet latched on like some kind of giant bug. Still no face, just blank skin and a thin, twitching frame. I slammed the brakes and jumped out, flashlight in hand, yelling, "Get off my damn truck!" But when I circled around to the trailer, nothing. He was gone. No handprints. No scratch marks. Just silence and the creaking of the cooling metal. I didn't get back in right away. I just stood there in the middle of the highway, breathing heavy, flashlight shaking in my grip. When I finally did climb back into the cab, I locked both doors, pulled the curtain tight, and drove like hell until the first town on the map showed up. Tiny place called Wood Hollow. Barely even a gas station. But I parked under the lights and sat there till sunrise. Couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that face. No eyes, no mouth, just skin, like someone tried to carve a man out of wax and forgot to finish. I asked around in town the next morning. Local guy at the diner said, "You saw the Pale Rider." Said folks around those parts had whispered about him for years. An old spirit, some say a demon, who follows lonely travelers on forgotten roads. Said once he sees you, he don't forget. I've driven Route 50 since, but never at night. Never again. Because I know he's still out there waiting. And sometimes, when I check my mirror too long, I think I see a shape hanging off the trailer. Just for a second. Then it's gone. But I know he remembers me, and I sure as hell won't forget him. There was another time, back in early spring, when I picked up a run from Kansas City heading toward Albuquerque. The dispatch had me taking an old service road through Oklahoma, one I'd never run before. Said it'd shave a couple hours off. Should have known better. Any shortcut in this line of work usually comes with a price. The road started fine. Nothing but farmland and silence. But as the sun dipped down and that dusk light hit, the whole world went gray. Dust kicked up in sheets across the asphalt, wind blowing hard like it had something to say but couldn't quite find the words. And then, out of nowhere, this thick fog rolled in. I'm talking thick like you couldn't see 6 feet past your hood. Like someone threw a wet wool blanket over the world. I slowed to a crawl, hazard lights blinking, hoping I didn't rear-end a fence or worse. Then I saw a sign. Just a crooked old wooden thing off the side of the road. Looked hand-painted. Said, "Welcome to Marlowe's Rest. Pop, 712. I ain't never heard of that place. No GPS hit. No map pin. But I figured maybe I'd stumbled on some quiet town out in the sticks, and if I was lucky, I'd find a diner, or at least a place to stretch my legs. So I kept going. And sure enough, the fog broke just a little, and I saw the lights. Pale yellow glows from what looked like gas lamps, old-timey storefronts with warped windows and narrow streets all too quiet for that hour. It felt like I'd driven straight into the 1950s. I pulled into a small lot beside what looked like a general store and climbed down. Not a single soul in sight, but everything was open, doors unlocked, lights on, music softly playing from a radio inside. The diner across the street. That's when it hit me. There was no sound. No crickets. No wind. No hum of electricity. Just dead silence. Like the world forgot how to breathe. I crossed over to the diner, feeling like I was dreaming. Bell above the door jingled when I walked in, and sure enough, the place looked fresh. Coffee hot on the burners, pies in the case, but not a single person. I stepped behind the counter trying to call out, but the deeper I went into the place, the more wrong it felt. Back in the kitchen there were plates already set on a table, forks in mid-fall, as if someone dropped them while eating, and just never came back. I turned around and saw movement. In the reflection of the metal fridge, there was someone standing behind me. I spun around. Nobody. But when I looked back at the reflection, they were still there. Tall, thin, wearing old suspenders and a wide-brimmed hat. Face wasn't right. Too long. Eyes like deep holes carved into wood. I ran. Didn't wait. Busted. Out the diner door and made a beeline for my truck. But the fog had come back, twice as thick. I could barely find my rig. Climbed in, locked the doors, and tried to start her up. Nothing. Dead. Just like that gas station back in Nevada. Then came the tapping, slow and deliberate. One knock on the passenger window, then another on the driver's side. I didn't want to see what was there, but I could hear breathing. Heavy, raspy, close, too close. I stayed frozen, hand on the wheel, until, just like that, the fog lifted. The sky cleared, and my engine roared to life on its own. Didn't question it, just floored it out of there. Only looked in my mirror once, and I saw the whole town behind me vanish like smoke, blinked out of existence in the blink of an eye. No Marlowe's Rest on the map, no trace of it ever being there. But when I checked the outside of my truck the next day, there were handprints. Smudged into the dust, all along the doors and windshield. Big ones, small ones. Like a whole crowd had been leaning in, staring at me through the glass. I don't stop in strange towns anymore. If it ain't on the map, I keep rolling. Because sometimes a town ain't a town. Sometimes it's a trap, waiting to see who's dumb enough to walk inside and sit down at the table. And next time, they might not let me leave. There was one run I'll never forget, no matter how. Many years I keep hauling. This one didn't take place out in the boonies or some backwater ghost town. It happened smack dab on I-70 somewhere in Colorado. The night was calm, traffic light, sky pitch black and glittered with stars. I was making good time, feeling relaxed, listening to some old outlaw country on the radio, when I saw a hitchhiker standing on the shoulder just outside of Rifle. Now look, I normally don't pick folks up. Too many stories, too many risks. But this guy, I don't know. There was something about him. Looked young, maybe early 20s, wearing a ratty army jacket, jeans, and boots covered in dust. He had this lost, hollow look in his eyes, like someone who hadn't spoken to another soul in weeks. Against my better judgment, I slowed down and pulled over. He jogged up, nodded polite-like, and asked if I could give him a lift east, just as far as Glenwood Springs. Said his name was Tom. I told him to hop in. Soon as he settled in the passenger seat, I got this chill, like the cab dropped 10 degrees. I figured maybe the night air rushed in, didn't think too much of it. But then the smell hit me. Not bad exactly, just odd, like old smoke and river water. We drove in silence for a bit. He didn't talk much, just stared out the window, eyes fixed on the road like he was watching for something to appear. I tried to make small talk, ask him where he was from. He said he'd served overseas, came home, and now he was trying to find someone. When I asked who, he said, myself. That kind of shook me a bit, but I didn't press. We rode on, the road quiet, the only sound being my tires humming and the occasional buzz of a bug hitting the windshield. But then things got strange. I noticed we'd been driving for over an hour, but hadn't passed a single sign, no exits, no gas stations, nothing. Just dark forest on both sides, no moon above. I checked my GPS. No signal. The map had frozen. 20 miles back. That's when I realized the clock on the dash wasn't moving. Stuck at 12:03 a.m. I glanced at Tom, and for the first time, I saw his reflection in the glass of the side window. And it wasn't right. He looked different, older. His skin was sunken, pale, like someone who hadn't eaten in weeks. His eyes had gone black, not from shadow, but like they'd been hollowed out. I swallowed hard, gripped the wheel tight. "Hey, you all right?" I asked, trying to sound calm. He turned to look at me slowly and said, "You missed the turn. We weren't supposed to go this way." "What do you mean? What turn?" I asked, trying not to panic. "The road only opens at night. If you miss it, you stay on it forever." That's what he said, and I'll never forget the way he said it. Calm, matter of fact, like it was already decided. I looked back at the road, and the headlights hit a sign that hadn't been there before. It was crooked, rusted, and read, "No exit ahead." I slammed the brakes, heart racing. When I looked over at Tom, he was gone. Just gone. Seat empty, door still shut. I threw the rig in gear and floored it, pushing that engine harder than I ever had. Finally, after what felt like hours, the trees cleared, the GPS blinked back to life, and I saw the lights of a truck stop in the distance. I pulled in, jumped out, and just stood there in the lot, breathing heavy. The truck's passenger seat was bone dry. No sign anyone had ever been there. But the dashboard clock still read 12:03 a.m. Stayed like that for 2 whole days before it finally fixed itself. I asked around about that stretch of road, and one old-timer told me there's a legend about a soldier who died trying to hitchhike home from the war. Said folks see him on foggy nights trying to catch a ride east, but if you take him too far, you end up on his road, a road that don't ever end. All I know is I check my GPS religiously now, and I don't stop for hitchhikers, no matter how lost they look. 'Cause once you've seen that hollow face staring at you from the dark, you know the truth. Some rides ain't meant to be taken. Some roads don't take you anywhere but straight into the mouth of the unknown. And once it's got a taste of you, it just might try to find you again. Now there was this one haul I took out of Montana heading down toward Amarillo, and let me tell you, that stretch through Wyoming, it's empty. I mean real empty. Miles of flat land, maybe the occasional cow staring at you like it knows something you don't. It was mid-fall, and the nights were starting to get longer. That particular evening, I was running a bit behind schedule, so I figured I'd drive a few hours past sunset. Sky was clear, stars like pinholes in a blanket, and the moon was hanging low and orange like a bruise on the horizon. I'd just passed a broken-down rest stop, looked abandoned for years, when I saw someone walking on the side of the road. Not hitchhiking, not flagging me down, just walking, slow and steady like he had all the time in the world. He was dressed in dark clothes, too dark for me to catch much detail, but what made me slow down was the way he turned his head to follow my truck as I passed. Didn't move his body, just his neck, like an owl. Gave me the chills, but I kept on driving. I ain't stupid. Just about a mile later, I spotted something else. Same figure, same clothes, same weird turn of the head, only this time, he was standing on the other side of the road. I tapped the brakes, looked in the rear view. No one there. Nothing behind me for miles. I told myself I was tired, maybe seeing things. Reached over, grabbed a fresh cup of truck stop coffee, and took a long swig. When I looked back up, there he was again, dead center of the road. I slammed the brakes, tires screeching, heart pounding. But there wasn't a thud. No bump, nothing. I jumped out with my flashlight, nerves all tight, and looked around. No one, not a single trace, just cold wind whipping through the grass and my engine ticking as it cooled. I got back in the cab, locked the doors, and sat there for a minute, trying to calm down. And then I heard footsteps on my roof. Not fast, not frantic, slow. One step at a time, like someone taking a stroll across the top of my rig. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Just sat there, listening as those steps walked from front to back. Then silence. But it wasn't over. My CB radio, which hadn't made a peep all night, suddenly crackled to life. Through the static, I heard a voice. Low, raspy, and so faint. I had to lean in close. It said, "You're not supposed to be here." That was it. No call sign, no background noise, just that one sentence, then dead air. I started the engine and drove like hell till I hit the nearest town, didn't even care if it burned the extra fuel. At a truck stop later, I asked around, told one of the old-timers what I'd seen. He gave me a long look and said, "You must have gone through Dead Mile." I asked what that was, and he said there's a stretch of highway out there, just a few miles long, that shows up now and again when the moon hangs low. Folks who've lost themselves on that road talk about seeing a man who walks, always watching, always turning his head in that unnatural way. Some say he's a drifter who froze to death back in the 40s. Others think he's something older. Something that's just wearing a man's skin. But either way, once you see him, you don't ever forget. He shows up again, sometimes years later, always walking, always watching. Now, I ain't the superstitious type, but I keep a chain of iron bolts in my glove box now. One of them old-timers told me iron keeps the dead away. Don't know if it works, but ever since I started carrying it, I haven't seen that figure again. Still, I don't like driving that part of Wyoming anymore. And if I ever do, believe me, I never drive it after sunset. Because on the highway, sometimes the road ain't just asphalt and paint. Sometimes it's a place that remembers. And sometimes, something in the dark is walking beside you, waiting for the next time you're too tired to notice the turn. You just missed. ChatGPT said I was hauling refrigerated goods out of Nevada, heading to a distribution center in Salt Lake City, and I had this back route I like to take. Quieter, smoother drive. Not a soul for miles most nights. I knew every twist and turn of that highway like the back of my hand. At least I thought I did. That night started out normal. The reefer unit was humming steady, and the cool air inside the cab felt good against the dry desert heat. I grabbed a thermos of black coffee, had some blues on the radio, and was just watching the miles roll by under a crescent moon. Then I noticed the temperature outside was dropping fast, like really fast, from 70 degrees to 40 in just a couple minutes. I turned down the radio, started looking out the windows. No wind, no storm, just this thick wall of fog rolling in, slow and deliberate, like it had somewhere to be. Within seconds, I couldn't see past my own hood. That's when I felt the pressure change. You ever been deep underwater? That heaviness in your chest and ears? It was just like that, sitting there in the driver's seat. My ears popped, and the steering wheel felt like it was buzzing under my hands. I eased up on the gas, tried not to panic. The road was gone, just white mist in every direction. GPS was still showing the route, but it wasn't moving. It was stuck. I rolled forward a few more feet, slow as molasses, hoping the fog would break. But then I saw her, a girl standing on the center line, long dark hair, white dress, barefoot. She wasn't facing me, just standing there, her back to the truck. I damn near spilled my coffee all over the dash. I hit the brakes, leaned on the horn, and shouted out the window, "Hey, you okay?" No response. I jumped out with my flashlight, heart thumping, boots hitting the pavement hard. I walked up slow, calling again. She didn't move. Just as I got about 10 feet away, she turned. And brother, I swear to you, her face wasn't right. It looked normal at first, but then it shifted. Her skin stretched, eyes wide and pitch black. No whites, no pupils. Mouth hung open way too far, like her jaw wasn't even attached anymore. I staggered back, damn near dropped the flashlight. And just like that, she vanished. Gone, no poof. No running. Just there 1 second and nothing the next. I turned and ran back to the rig. Threw that thing in gear and tore down the road, fog be damned. Didn't care if I ended up in a ditch. Anything was better than being in that place. A second longer. About 10 miles later, the fog just stopped. Like someone turned off a machine. Clear skies, bright stars, normal temps. I pulled into a gas station just past the state line, hands shaking, face pale. A mechanic saw me and said, "You all right, driver? You look like you seen a ghost." I told him what happened, and his expression turned serious real quick. He said, "You took the old highway, didn't you?" I nodded. That road runs through what used to be the town of Gallows Hollow, burned down in the 60s. Locals say there was a girl went missing. Out there, folks blamed her daddy, said he snapped one night, did something awful. They found his truck parked right in the middle of the road, engine running, blood all over the cab, but never found her body. Now people say she shows up in the fog, looking for someone to take her home. He paused, leaned closer, and said, "And if she ever speaks to you, don't answer." I didn't ask why. I didn't want to know. From that day forward, I started keeping a cross, hanging on my rear view, even though I wasn't much of a church-going man. I never took that back route again. Don't care how much time it saves me. Some shortcuts ain't worth the risk, because out there on the highway, the past don't always stay buried. Sometimes it waits in the fog, wearing a girl's face, hoping you'll stop, hoping you'll say the wrong thing. And once you do, well, let's just say, not everyone makes it out to tell the tale. There was a route through the Appalachians I used to run during the early days of my career winding. Through the mountains like a snake with a secret. Beautiful drive during the day, sure. Trees on both sides, fresh pine air, birds singing like a lullaby, but at night, that road changed. I remember one delivery in particular, heading toward Asheville, North Carolina. Late load, so I didn't hit the mountain stretch until well after midnight. I was on Route 74, just past the Cherokee turnoff, when I noticed the radio starting to act up. Static, weird bursts of voices, like someone was trying to whisper but couldn't quite. Breakthrough. I figured it was just the hills blocking the signal, so I shut it off. Then the dashboard lights flickered. Just for a second. I tapped the panel, thinking it was a loose wire. But then the headlights blinked. I mean both of them, off and on like a damn camera flash. That's when I slowed down. I looked out the side mirror, and I swear, I saw someone sitting on the back of the trailer. No kidding, just perched there, knees to their chest, clinging to the steel like it was home. I hit the brakes, threw on the flashers, jumped out with my flashlight. Walked the whole length of the trailer. Nothing, just the cold, the trees, and the sound of my boots crunching gravel. Got back in the cab feeling uneasy, pulled back, onto the road. Maybe 5 minutes later, I saw something that still makes my skin crawl even now. On the side of the road, just beyond the reach of the headlights, there were people standing. Not walking, not moving, just standing there, lined up like statues facing the road. Must have been 15 or 20 of them. Couldn't see their faces, but they were all wearing the same thing. Dark, old-fashioned clothes, like from 100 years ago. I gripped the wheel and kept driving, heart pounding. But then, the lights flickered again, and when they came back on full, the people were gone. Every last one of them. That's when I heard a thump, on the roof, then another, then dragging, like something heavy was crawling across the top of the cab. I damn near jumped out of my skin. I floored it, not looking back, not stopping for nothing. Made it to Asheville in record time, hands still shaking. Parked at the drop. Yard and sat there with the engine running, trying to calm down. One of the warehouse guys noticed and walked over, asked if I was okay. I told him what I saw. He looked at me real slow and said, "You been through Black Hollow." I asked what that meant, and he told me there's a stretch of mountain road where a church full of folks vanished back in the early 1900s. Whole congregation, preacher, and all. No signs of struggle, just disappeared. Folks say their spirits wander that road, trying to hitch a ride or climb aboard. Some say they're trying to escape. Others say they're looking for a new congregation, living souls to join. And if you stop, well, you might not be alone when you drive away. Ever since that night, I've refused any route that runs through those hills. Don't care how good the pay is. I've seen things out there in the dark that make my bones cold just remembering them. Things that don't belong in this world. So if you ever find yourself driving alone through the mountains after midnight and your radio goes quiet, and your lights start to blink, don't stop, don't look, and whatever you do, don't open the door, because some passengers, once they climb aboard, don't ever plan on leaving. There was this one job I picked up out of Texas, taking a haul of steel pipes out to a construction site near Yuma, Arizona. Straight shot through the desert, mostly quiet, nothing but sand and sky for miles. I figured it'd be easy. Sunset. Start, overnight drive, beat the heat. But let me tell you, I've never been so wrong in my life. I was somewhere near Lordsburg when I saw the sign. Scenic route, Desert View Drive, next left. Now I'd never taken it before, but the GPS showed it shaving off a good hour. I was behind schedule already, so I thought, what the hell, right? I turned onto the road just as the sun dipped behind the hills, and right away, something felt off. The road was narrow, cracked, barely maintained, and there wasn't a single other vehicle in sight. I drove on, but the farther I went, the darker it got, faster than it should have. Like the desert swallowed up the last of the light. My headlights barely reached 10 feet ahead, and the sky above was pitch black. No stars, no moon. Just empty. And the worst part? My headlights started to dim. Not all at once, just slowly, like someone was turning down a dial. I checked the battery. Everything was fine. Engine was running smooth. But the lights? Fading like a candle burning. Out. I was about to turn around when I saw the silhouette of a gas station up ahead. Old beat-up neon sign hanging half-lit that read, "Fowler's Fuel and Feed." I pulled in, relieved, and shut the engine off, got out and walked up to the station, which looked like it hadn't been touched since the 1950s. Dust on the windows, a rusted-out Coke machine by the door, and no lights inside. I knocked on the glass. Nothing. Then the door creaked open on its own, just a little. Enough to make my heart skip. I stepped inside, calling out, "Hello? Anyone here?" The air inside was thick, hot, stale, like it had been sitting untouched for years. Shelves stocked with old canned food, newspapers from decades ago, even a jar of pickled eggs turning black. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, from the back of the store. I turned toward the sound and caught a glimpse of a man, tall, thin, wearing a wide-brimmed hat and a long coat. Couldn't see his face. He stopped just at the edge of the shadows. I said, "Hey, I just need a little help. My lights are acting up." No answer. He didn't move. Just stood there, breathing. I could hear him breathing, raspy and deep like he hadn't taken a clean one in years. Then he pointed, just raised his arm and pointed toward the back door. I didn't want to go, but my feet moved on their own like I was being pulled. I pushed through the back door and stepped into pitch black. No light at all. Couldn't even see my hands. Then, the screaming started. Not one voice, dozens, maybe more. Screams of pain, panic, begging for help. I stumbled back, trying to run. But the door slammed shut behind me. I felt hands, cold, thin hands, grab my arms, my shoulders, holding me in place. Then a voice whispered right in my ear, "You stopped. You shouldn't have stopped." Next thing I knew, I was back in my truck, engine running, sun rising in the distance, like nothing happened. But I swear, I lost hours. I checked the clock. It was 6:15 a.m., but I should have still been 2 hours out. I was already at the site, and the road I took, GPS didn't show it, like it didn't exist. Later that day, I asked one of the locals if they'd ever heard of Fowler's Fuel and Feed. The guy went pale. Said that place burned down in 1974. Nobody rebuilt it. Said the owner, a guy named Fowler, went crazy one night, locked a bunch of travelers inside, and set the place on fire. They say if you take the wrong road through the desert, he finds you, wants you to stop, wants you to join the others who never made it out. And now, every time I drive through open desert, I pass by signs that shouldn't be there, half-burned, flickering, leading to places that don't exist. And I never, ever stop. Because out here, in the wide, empty dark, some roads were never meant to be driven. The last story I'm going to tell y'all tonight is the one that damn near ended me for good. It happened just outside of Oregon on Highway 395. I was making a solo run, light load, just a few crates heading north, and I was looking forward to the peace and quiet. I'd seen my share of strange things by then. Ghost girls in fog, mountain phantoms, cursed gas stations. But I thought I'd learned how to handle myself. I thought wrong. It was around 3 a.m., my favorite time to drive. The world feels still, like it's holding its breath, and the road stretches out like it's never gonna end. I was deep in that zone, engine humming, coffee hot, when the CB crackled to life. Now I hadn't heard anyone on that channel for hours. I keep it open just in case, but most nights it's just static. Except this time, a voice came through. Low, dry, like sandpaper on steel. "You shouldn't be out here tonight, driver." I sat up straight, hand tight on the mic. "Say again?" No response, just static. I scanned the road, still empty. I called back again. "Breaker 19. This is Blacktop Bandit. Who's out there?" A pause. Then the same voice, a little closer. "Turn around. Now. Before it finds you." My skin crawled. I clicked off the CB and checked my mirrors. Nothing. Just the red glow of my taillights and miles of blacktop. I kept driving, trying to shake it off. But then I saw lights behind me. Not headlights. These were high, flickering, like someone hanging lanterns from trees. They floated, moved, and they were gaining on me. I pushed the pedal, heart pounding, but the lights came closer. Then I saw it in the rear view. Not a truck, not a car. Something tall, lean, running on two legs like a man, but twisted. Its joints bent the wrong way. Its face long and sharp like a skull stretched too tight. It was running, chasing me. And it was fast, real fast. It slammed into the back of the trailer with a sound like metal tearing and let out this howl, high-pitched and hollow, like wind through a grave. I didn't look back again. Just floored it, praying the rig would hold. Then, just before the engine redlined, the road ended. Dead stop. No warning, no signs. Just a wall of trees. I swerved, slammed the brakes, skidded sideways across the gravel, tires screaming, until I finally stopped inches from the tree line. When I looked up, no lights, no creature. Just trees and silence. I sat there for what felt like forever, breathing hard, trying not to throw up. Then the CB crackled one last time. The voice was almost gentle this time. "You got lucky, driver. It only hunts once a year." I didn't say a word. I didn't turn the truck around either. I drove straight through the woods, branches slamming, against the cab, until I hit the next paved road on the other side. Took me hours, but I made it, dirty, bruised, scared out of my mind. I don't know what I saw out there. Don't know what it wanted. But I know it was real. And I know if I'd stopped, if I'd hesitated for even 1 second, I wouldn't be sitting here telling you this story. So that's it, friends. That's the last one. The roads out there, they're older than we know. Some of them were laid down on bones, on secrets, on places we were never meant to cross. And sometimes, when the hour's right and the winds wrong, they remember. They open up. And they show you what waits in the dark. So keep your wheels turning. Don't follow strange signs. Don't pick up hitchhikers. Don't answer voices on the CB that ain't got a call sign. And if you see something running behind you that shouldn't be alive, floor it. Because once you stop, once you look, it's already too late. Thanks for listening. I'll catch y'all on the flip side, if the highway lets me.